My name is Brendan Ash, and this is my book report for The Demon in the Freezer by Richard Preston. This book is divided into 8 separate sections about 8 stories, basically, about real life events that pertain to smallpox, biological warfare, and anthrax. Those are basically the three main topics of the book, and also how sort of the U.S. government also how they handle these types of things. So the first section of the book is sort of it looks back and it's like it goes into the outbreak of smallpox and what happened in the early stages of the 20th century, how they had to deal with this devastating disease, um, and also about the anthrax attacks that happened in 2001 from October 2nd to 2000 to October 2nd to October 15th in 2001, and how the United States government dealt with these attacks during this time. And the second section of the book basically goes into the outbreak of smallpox in Germany and how they successfully dealt with the disease. And basically, it goes into their protocols and their health officials and what they did right there to get on top of the disease as efficiently as possible. Now, the third section of the book describes the evolution of smallpox and the history of the actual disease, and how the story, basically the story to get rid of smallpox from this planet, and how it's kind of impossible because it's this disease that infects just anything and everything almost, and to eradicate it is almost impossible by our current means today. And interestingly, the fourth chapter of the book, The Other Side of the Moon, it's a very dark chapter that describes the first biological scientist that fled from Soviet Russia in 1999 before the collapse of the, or excuse me, in 1989 before the collapse of the Soviet Union, and how the Soviets at this time had weapons, ICBMs armed with both an actual plague and a smallpox disease. That there were armed missiles during this time, and that biological warfare was a very real thing that people were getting ready for at this time. And so now the fifth section of the book, called A Woman with a Peaceful Life, describes this doctor, Lisa Hensley. She's a microbiologist in the 2000s, and while studying Ebola during her research, she actually cut her finger. And it talks about how the infection and like her cut, and how it created they didn't realize how fatal the disease was until this accident happened in the lab, and it was exposed in the air. And also, this chapter talks about how scientists use animals as experiments for the smallpox, and how they use monkeys and mice and other animals to see how long they would live on the different types of smallpox and the longevity of life that they would have. The sixth section of the book, called The Demon Eyes, and it's a really disturbing chapter about what the U.S. Army doctors did to monkeys, and how they infected the monkeys to basically determine which strain. There was a Harper strain and an Indian strain, and I think the Indian strain would kill the monkeys much more quickly, and they actually did this test so, you know, we would basically understand it on humans, and the effects that it would have on human life. And us testing it on animal life was a very big issue back in the day, and still is, the fact that they use so many monkeys and mice and just animals in general to test this virus. And so the seventh section is called The Anthrax Skulls. And this is where the book kind of randomly comes back to the 2001 anthrax scare, and sort of goes into how the Department of Health and Human Services joined the investigation with all the other U.S. intelligence committees and basically wanted to get on top of these anthrax attacks because they thought they were terrorist attacks and could have potentially be coming from a foreign agent or some other type of place in the world, and they were just extremely felt threatened by these anthrax attacks and thought that they were meant to destroy massive amounts of human lives, basically. And this section of the book is really strange because the most of the book does talk about smallpox and its effects, and it has this very small, vague part about anthrax, and then it sort of kind of comes back at this section at the end of the book. So the last section of the book, called Superpox, is where at St. Louis University, a researcher named Mark Buehler, he was trying to reproduce, I believe it was the Jackson Ramshaw virus, which was a type of the smallpox virus. And he basically found out and applied it to animals and their fertility rates, and found out in mice that it was basically 100% fatal in every mouse, and that basically applied also to humans. So in this study, they found out that smallpox was extremely deadly. It could kill basically anything. It's just such a devastating disease that leaves humans disfigured, dismembered in some places, having to lose body parts. Just brutal description of what the disease does to the human body. So here in conclusion now, it really just ends with the Army scientists that have basically preserved this severed arm by this kid who had smallpox at the time, and this kid is just disfigured beyond recognition at this point, and it just really just hammers down emphasizes the horrific nature of smallpox and the disease that is smallpox. And that's basically it about the demon in the freezer. It really just covers smallpox, a little bit here of anthrax, and how the U.S. Controls, or how the U.S. handles an outbreak as today. So that's it. Yeah, thank you guys.